Good afternoon, and welcome to NASA's Lunar Delivery Readiness for Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost Mission 1 as part of the agency's Commercial Lunar Payload Services, or CLPS initiative, and Artemis campaign. I'm Antonia Jaramillo with NASA's Office of Communications. Carrying 10 NASA science demonstrations, Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander is scheduled to launch aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket at 1:11 a.m. Eastern Time, January 15th, from Launch Complex 39A at the agency's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Weather for launch is currently 90% go, with the primary concern being the cumulus cloud rule and liftoff winds. This will mark Firefly's first commercial robotic launch to the moon's surface. Recently, teams with NASA and Firefly met to confirm that all NASA science instruments flying aboard are go for launch. Here to talk with us about the NASA Science and CLPS initiative are Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate, Jason Kim, CEO for Firefly Aerospace, and Juliana Scheiman, Director for NASA Science Missions with SpaceX. After brief opening comments from each of our speakers, we will take your questions. You can enter *1 on your phone to be entered in the question queue at any time. Your phones are on mute now, and the operator will open your mic when we're ready and close your mic after you ask your question. We ask that you please stick to one question and identify to whom your question is directed. Shortly after we conclude, you can listen to a replay of this teleconference online. First, we will hear from Nikki Fox. Nikki?
Thank you so much, Tony. Obviously, really excited to be here today to talk about the Firefly Blue Ghost. But before I begin, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the terrible fires that are ravaging Southern California, and our hearts certainly go out to everybody in California that's impacted by this terrible events. I know a lot of our NASA and JPL employees who live in the areas impacted, and they've had their lives completely uprooted and they've lost their homes. And for that, I really have no words that can do justice to describe the utter devastation that these fires have caused, both in the short term and, of course, in the long term. NASA Science is working to alleviate the work pressures, including funding deadlines and things coming up, and we will certainly be providing more updates in the coming days, and that's both for JPL and also our university communities out there. During this time of need, it really has been heartwarming to hear the stories of community and honor that have been shared with me by Dr. Laurie Leshen, who leads JPL. It's wonderful to see how folks have opened their homes to those in need and found ways to come together and take care of each other, and I honestly could not be more proud of this community. We're thinking of each and every one of our incredible team members and indeed everybody in Southern California who've been affected and have lost so much. We support you, and we're here to help as best we can in the coming days and, of course, the coming months. But I do want to turn back to the topic at hand because we are really, really happy to be here at Kennedy Space Center, ready to launch Firefly's Blue Ghost Mission 1 to the moon. NASA leads the world in space exploration, and we are bringing humanity back to the moon before going on to Mars. And as demonstrated so beautifully by the CLPS program, American companies are a critical part of us getting there. Before NASA can send humans, of course, our most precious cargo, before we can send our humans back to the moon, we're sending a lot of science and a lot of technology ahead of time to prepare for that. We learned so many lessons during the Apollo era, and the technological and science demonstrations on board Firefly's Blue Ghost Mission 1 will be critical in our ability to not only discover more science, but also to ensure the safety of our spacecraft instruments, and most importantly, the safety of our astronauts. Right now, the American companies are at the forefront of innovation and discovery through our Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative, and CLPS, as we like to call it. CLPS is one-stop, all-inclusive delivery service to the moon, where NASA is just one of many customers along for the journey. The CLPS vendor, in this case Firefly, is responsible for payload integration and operations, launching from Earth and landing on the surface of the moon. NASA is investing in commercial delivery services to the moon to enable industry growth and to support long-term lunar exploration, helping the United States stay ahead in space innovation. I am really proud to say that we have 13 American companies eligible to bid on the CLPS contracts, and to date, 5 vendors have been awarded 11 lunar deliveries under CLPS and are sending more than 50 instruments to various locations on the moon, including the lunar South Pole. Existing CLPS contracts are indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts with a cumulative maximum contract value of $2.6 billion through 2028. No other nation has done this, and we have already been successful in America's robotic return to the moon. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today, because this is Firefly's first mission, the Blue Ghost Mission 1, and it is going to play such a critical role in bringing humanity back to the moon. Under Artemis, NASA will study more of the moon than ever before, and tomorrow, it feels like tonight, but it is indeed tomorrow, Blue Ghost 1 will begin its 45 Earth Day journey to deliver 10 NASA science investigations and first-of-their-kind technology demonstrations to the lunar surface. These cutting-edge payloads will further our understanding of the moon's environment and help prepare us for future human missions to the lunar surface, supporting, of course, our wonderful Agency Moon to Mars exploration approach. You learned in depth yesterday during our science mission briefing about the science and technology demonstrations on board, so I'm going to keep this brief. But tomorrow we're targeting the Mons Latrell volcanic feature on the moon, which lies within the Mare Crisium, a large basin located in the northeast quadrant of the moon's near side. This is a scientifically strategic and fruitful location that we zeroed in on because our future astronaut explorers will be able to use human intuition to be able to pick up scientifically interesting samples and bring them back to Earth, more so than any robot could actually determine. Therefore, we need to make sure our astronauts are the best equipped that they can be. We have on board Apollo-era-inspired instruments like electrodynamic dust shield that will demonstrate that we can actually repel the sticky moon dust in the lunar environment. Dust was one of the biggest challenges in the Apollo era, and that's certainly faced by our astronauts, and it impacted the instruments on board and the astronauts' health when it got stuck to their clothes and they breathed it in within the spacecraft. Removing the dust will be revolutionary. Blue Ghost Mission 1 is more than a technological milestone. It lays the foundation for humanity to dare mighty things on another body in our solar system. I certainly would like to thank our CLPS vendor, Firefly, also SpaceX, the Italian space agency, and all of our commercial and industry and academic partners for their contributions to Firefly's Blue Ghost Mission 1. We know that going to space is hard. Space is hard. Going to the moon is really hard. But when we all work together, we can achieve these really great things. I am so proud that NASA is supporting the creation of a lunar economy with American companies at the forefront through commercial deliveries of NASA science. And I really look forward to the scientific and technological advancements the 14 days of lunar surface operations will bring to help us prepare for the next generation of explorers. So go NASA CLPS, go Falcon 9, go Blue Ghost Mission 1.
Thank you so much, Nikki. We'll now toss it over to Jason.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Joel. And thank you, Juliana, for letting us share the stage today and for the support. We feel the love. I want to echo also what Nikki said about the Los Angeles area. JPL is part of our team. We thank them for letting us do our environmental testing of the Blue Ghost lunar lander last year. And so our hearts and thoughts are with you, and we love Los Angeles. It's incredible to be here today with Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander that's about to embark on our first mission to the moon. Blue Ghost arrived in Cape Canaveral on December 16th, and our team has since completed all pre-launch operations, including final functional checkouts, battery charging, and propellant loading. Firefly then handed off our flight-ready lander to our partner SpaceX for integration on their Falcon 9 rocket. Following liftoff and separation, Blue Ghost will spend approximately 45 days in transit to the moon before landing in Mare Crisium and operating for a complete lunar day equivalent to 14 Earth days. This 60-day mission will begin just after launch vehicle separation. Once we acquire signal, we'll begin conducting health checks, calibrating our systems, and operating our NASA payloads. Even before we touch down on the surface, we'll provide NASA with critical science data all along the way to the moon. So we'll go through LEO, MEO, GEO, and then cislunar before we descend on the moon on March 2nd. The research we gather will help unlock future space exploration while also benefiting life on Earth with new insights into how space weather and other cosmic forces affect our planet. Each milestone we complete will provide valuable data for future missions and ultimately keep the United States and our international partners at the forefront of space exploration. Everything we have learned, tested, built for this moment has already moved America forward. We want to thank NASA for entrusting Firefly to carry their critical instruments to the moon, and we want to thank SpaceX for serving as our reliable launch partner. And lastly, I want to thank our incredible team of Fireflies. We're here today thanks to your efforts. I know our entire team of Fireflies have been looking at the moon a bit differently, me included, these days, and finding ourselves staring at the moon's northeast corner each night. We at Firefly decided to place a plaque on the lander that included the names of all of our employees and our key investors that dared to dream big and get us to this point. It really puts this bold mission into perspective, knowing our Blue Ghost lander will soon have a permanent home there. And we're honored and humbled to play a role in paving the way for a lasting lunar presence. Firefly is a go for launch. Let's go, Ghost Riders in the sky.
Thank you so much, Jason. We'll now kick it off to Juliana.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Nikki. I'm excited to be here today to talk about this incredibly unique and first-of-its-kind mission. Not only are we launching our second NASA CLIPS mission, but we're flying 2 lunar landers to the moon tomorrow, or really tonight, depending on how you think about it. As you know, Falcon 9 will carry Firefly's Blue Ghost 1 lander, but also on board this mission is iSpace's Resilience lunar lander. To make this possible, Resilience is integrated within a payload canister, and Blue Ghost is stacked on top of that. We'll have 3 deployment events from Falcon's second stage on this mission. First, Blue Ghost will deploy to its target orbit. Then, the canister will be deployed, exposing iSpace's lunar lander. Falcon 9 will complete its third burn. Then Resilience will deploy to its target orbit. Falcon 9 is an amazing vehicle with the incredible performance and ability to complete multi-burn missions. Our customers have different strategies for arriving to the moon, and Falcon 9's abilities enable us to deliver each lander to their respective injection orbits to complete their mission. Our steady launch cadence, combined with our fleet of reliable, flight-ready hardware, continuously unlock opportunities for critical science and technology missions like Firefly's Blue Ghost 1. And our experience launching multiple payloads to different orbits on single missions allows us to bring innovative launch solutions to NASA and their partners. A ton of amazing engineering work went into making this mission possible, so huge shout out to the SpaceX, Firefly, and iSpace teams for making it happen. It's a huge bonus that this dual lander mission is flying from Launch Complex 39A with all of its Apollo heritage. Tomorrow's mission is our third lunar lander mission after previously launching iSpace's Hakuto R Mission 1 and Intuitive Machines IM-1 landers. This is our first CLIPS launch of the year. Blue Ghost will provide crucial insights and amazing lunar science to inform future missions, including Starship's lunar presence to support Artemis astronauts landing safely on the moon. Every mission and every launch help create greater access to space and get us one step closer to making life multiplanetary. Tomorrow's mission will get us one step closer to that reality. Thank you very much, and back to you, Tony.
Thank you. For awareness, we also have some additional subject matter experts on the line to help answer questions if needed. We will now begin the question and answer portion. Please remember to stick to one question and identify to whom it is directed. If we have time, we'll allow reporters to ask a second question. Again, you can enter *1 on your phone to be entered in the queue at any time, and you can enter *2 if you'd like to be removed from the queue. First up, we have Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Yes, hello. I have a question for Nikki. Looking ahead for CLPS missions this year, is the Intuitive Machine's second mission still targeting the end of February for liftoff? And are there any other CLPS missions on the books for this year?
Thanks, Marcia. Yes, as far as we are aware, Intuitive Machines is still on track for a late February launch. And yes, we have another. We don't have another. Do we have another launch in? Sorry, I'm phoning a friend. Joel's sitting next to me.
Yeah, we have after Firefly's Blue Ghost Mission 1 in 2025, and later in the first quarter, Intuitive Machines IM2 mission. Intuitive Machines is currently scheduled to have their IM3 mission, which will carry CLPS payloads near the end of the year, and also Blue Origin's Blue Moon Mark 1 robotic lander will carry one CLPS payload, which may launch in 2025. That we would have to ask Blue Origin. And then also, if you remember, Astrobotic is still preparing their Griffin Mission 1, and they are saying that they will launch it probably at the end of 2025. It's really important. Remember that these missions are not NASA missions. They're commercial missions. To get definitive information, you have to reach out to the companies and ask the individual companies what their plans are.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel and Nikki. Next up, we have Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with us today. Question for Juliana. This particular configuration with the two landers and the shell that separates the two, is this the first time that SpaceX is flying this particular payload configuration? If not, when did it use it before? Or if it is, what is SpaceX learning from this particular flight that can help in future similar types of missions? Thanks.
Yes, thank you for the question. As you can see from our manifest, we fly a plethora of multi-payload rideshare style missions, and each of those missions often require a slightly unique or bespoke payload mechanical interface to meet those mission requirements. And so while this specific canister and adapter is unique for this mission, we have a lot of experience flying multiple unique payload adapters and payload rideshare configurations. Every time we have one of those missions, we're always making sure that we are learning and applying those appropriate lessons learned for future missions. So yeah, it's really exciting that we can deploy two missions to the moon on the same rocket.
Thank you. Next up, we have Isam Ahmed with ASP.
Hi, thank you for taking the question. This is for Jason. I was wondering if you could explain just for, in sort of lay terms, why you chose the strategy you chose for arriving at the moon in approximately 45 days. I know people see these numbers and sort of wonder, well, I mean, it could be done theoretically much quicker. So is it a fuel-saving thing? And if you could just describe that trajectory a little bit in simple terms and why you chose that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start to answer that question. I'll pass it off to Ray, our program director for the mission. But what I would say is there's so many advantages doing this 45-day trip to the moon. The initialization is an important step in any on-orbit campaign. And so being able to test out the essential bus that includes the power generation on the solar arrays to the batteries and the flight computer turned on and in nominal condition with the software, and being able to communicate down telemetry and status of health to the ground stations, to our mission control center, and then subsequently being able to command and control the vehicle is a very, very important step in any mission. So we get to do that, and we get to spend some time checking out the lunar lander and the electrical checkouts and the payload checkouts. And then as we go through the transit, there's going to be some science payload objectives that get taken care of. And so the mission just doesn't start when we softly land on the moon. It starts when we actually initialize the vehicle. And so imagine all the science data that you're getting as you're going through that transit, low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, geosynchronous orbit, cislunar orbit. So there's so many advantages of that. And then the ability to take your time and calibrate the propulsion system and prime it so that you can do translunar injection properly and accurately, I think that's something that we know that is a challenge, but we'll be able to do that in a very managed way because this mission is very important to NASA and to the payload providers and to Firefly. So that is the beginning of that answer. I'll pass it on to Ray.
Thanks, Jason. So my name is Ray Allensworth. I'm the Spacecraft Program Director at Firefly. I'd say the primary thing I'd also like to add is that our trajectory also gives us a little bit of flexibility. So, you heard earlier that we are 90% for weather. Say there is a weather event that happens today and we go to our backup day, we will still land at the same time. And so we'll be able to adjust the maneuvers that are happening in space to still meet all of our mission objectives and land on the lunar surface at the very beginning of the lunar day. So there are a lot of positives to having this type of design. Our design is really robust, and we're able to adjust it as needed, as well as being able to accomplish all of our payload checkouts, health and safety checkouts as we make this journey to the moon. Thank you, Jason and Ray. Next up, we have Vinny Martorano with CBS Austin.
Hi, guys. Thank you again for taking the time to answer some of our questions. I think this one's directed for Nikki. You guys talking so highly about being the first private company to be able to go on the moon in regards to this mission. My question for you is, how significant is that? Being based out of Cedar Park, a town just north of Austin, what does it mean, the significance for you guys to represent the city and just being that first private company to be on the moon as you guys set to take off tomorrow?
All right, so I'm going to answer it kind of from a NASA perspective, and then I'm going to ask Jason to comment on behalf of Austin and Firefly because I know it. I think it's. I think anyone who's got anything to do with the missions that we fly has a great sense of pride in it. What we do at NASA Science is always cutting edge, pushing the boundaries, pushing the frontiers, first of a kind. So, and as I noted, we have we have 13 American companies that are eligible to do these CLPS contracts. This one, led by Firefly, has a large number of industry and academic partners as well in this mission. And I think that you just feel a tremendous sense of pride whenever you think, well, my goodness, I said in my remarks, space is hard. Going to the moon is hard. And I think it's just an incredible feeling to be associated with any of these missions. I think the wonderful thing about the CLPS program is enabling new companies to actually sort of enter the lunar stage almost, if you like. Companies that haven't done these type of things before now actually, for Firefly, on the verge of launching a mission to go to the moon is so exciting. And so I'm so proud of Firefly, all of their team. I actually had the fortune of visiting and seeing the lander at their facility in Austin. So I just think it's very significant for these companies to be doing these things and to be doing these daring things. I'm sure I'd be saying the same thing about Intuitive Machines when they landed in February of last year. We're so excited to have Firefly joining them. But Jason, please add from the city of Austin.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. What I would say is that for the city of Austin, where a majority of our Firefly employees work and live with their families and friends, this is really important to us because our team works really hard, and they're very exceptional at all aspects of lunar landers, but they don't get the recognition, in my humble opinion, that they deserve for everything that they do to get ready for this moment. I think it's important that the Fireflies get the recognition for being a private company, taking commercial advancements and all the cost and schedule savings that you can get from that passed on to NASA and all the important critical missions that we're going to be demonstrating on the lunar surface. That's an incredible feat for the Fireflies, and I hope the world will see the Fireflies in a different way after this, And then also, there's a lot of younger generation, kids growing up K through 12 that are in the local Austin area. And, they're just amazed by seeing these missions and our people. So I think this mission will inspire that generation, and so that we can continue this journey of science and exploration for many, many more years.
Thank you, Nikki and Jason. Next up, we have Jackie Waddles with CNN.
Hi, everyone. Great to hear from you all. This question, I think, for Nikki. So I wanted to check in about the Hakuto R mission. I heard from their leadership that the Tenacious rover that will be inside their Resilience lander is going to collect a sample that they might sell back to NASA. I think I remember that something similar was planned for the first Hakuto R mission. I just wanted to check and verify if that's true, and was wondering if you could say anything about the price point for that transfer of the lunar sample ownership. And then also just curious if you could touch on information sharing in general. I know iSpace is set to be supporting a partner of Draper's for a future CLIPS mission. So I was wondering if NASA is going to have insight into any data that lander collects. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much for the question. Obviously, as you noted, that is not a NASA mission, so you'd have to go and actually talk to that relevant team to get the information that you really want. But to your question about information sharing, obviously, from a NASA perspective, all of our NASA data are always public. We believe greatly in open science, and so we share all of our data, and we look forward where we have partnerships with the different companies working on with these different CLIPS vendors moving forward. A really good working relationship that we have with all of our companies. And so Draper and iSpace, I know, a very, very strong team moving forward and looking forward to that launch.
Thank you, Nikki. Next up, we have Ned Potter with IEE Spectrum.
Hi, I think this question is for Nikki or Juliana. It's another question about the Japanese resilience mission. First of all, do you know very much about their timeline? And once they have deployed from the Falcon rocket, how much do you continue to communicate with them?
I'm going to let Juliana take that one because that's not a NASA mission. So, Juliana, if you have comments.
Sure, Nikki. I can speak to this a little bit, but I think your question would actually best served if you reached out to the iSpace team directly. After we deploy a payload, the vehicle, like our Falcon and the iSpace vehicle, don't have a technical means with which to communicate with one another. But obviously, after we deploy any mission, we are very interested in how that mission is progressing. So we consistently bug our customer partners to give us updates. But the specifics for their mission and how their sequence unfolds is best answered by the iSpace team directly.
Thank you all. Next up, we have Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now.
Hey, thanks for letting me take a second question. Appreciate it. Another one for Juliana, real quick. On the timeline side of things, you mentioned once the canister is deployed, that there's another burn before the deployment of the iSpace lander, but I don't see the times for that in the launch page. Can you give us the time for the start and the end of that burn? And just a quick follow-up, if I may. Can you give an update on the status of the fifth and final Dragon that'll be supporting the Crew 10 mission in March? Thanks.
Yes. If you don't mind, give me one moment to confirm the exact timelines for you for that burn. And I am here to focus on the launch we have tomorrow evening, so I won't speak on any of the Dragon topics. If you can give me one moment to pull up the timeline, I can get those for you. Or if you prefer, we can follow up offline to do that. I do notice that there's a disconnect between the resource you're looking at. There is a burn in between those.
Thank you, Juliana. Next up, we have Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Nikki, apologies if this question was asked before. I had to step away for just one moment. But I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what you're hearing or seeing on Congress in Capitol Hill with Congress regarding CLPS and its future. Thanks so much. Is there a lot of support or any rethinking? Any detail would be great.
NASA really does appreciate the bipartisan support that we have from our friends on the Hill, and CLPS is a very vibrant part of the NASA science portfolio, enabling really, really great partnership with industry, bringing new companies into the space environment, and just allowing us to get more NASA science into space and onto the moon. And so we've had a tremendous amount of support, and we hope to see that support continue. But thanks for the question.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Jackie Wattles with CNN.
Hi, folks. Sorry. Thanks for taking a follow-up. So I just wanted to make sure, because iSpace did mention that their Tenacious rover is going to be collecting a sample that they intend to sell. Is there any way we can confirm, is that true that NASA intends to take possession of that sample? I know it's kind of nominal ownership since it's not coming back home. And I remember that there was a 2020 deal worth about $25,000 that was awarded to iSpace Europe and iSpace Japan for lunar sample collection. Is that still in place? Is that still involved here? Just trying to get some clarity on that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Really do need you to follow up with iSpace on that. That's really not for us to comment on their plans, but appreciate the interest.
And we can definitely follow up with that offline, Jackie. Next up, we have Marcia Smith with SpacePolicyOnline.com.
Thanks so much. Could we get a weather update, not just for the launch in a few hours, but if there's a delay for any reason, what's the 24-hour delay? And are there other constraints in case anything goes awry and you miss this window?
Absolutely. So like we mentioned, right now, the launch weather forecast is 90% go. With the 10% violation, the primary concern is the liftoff winds and the cumulus cloud rule. And then if there is a 24-hour delay, then we go to a 60% go. It's a 40% of violation. And the primary concerns there is the thick cloud layers rule as well as the cumulus cloud rule. Of course, it's the Space Launch Delta 45 Launch Weather Squadron that's the one that releases these reports. So if you do have any additional follow-ups, we'd be more than happy to help connect you with them offline. And then, I'm sorry, I think you also mentioned the launch window, so I'll toss that to Juliana.
Sure. If for some reason we're unable to launch this evening, we have 5 total launch attempts in the launch window, so from January 15th through the 20th.
Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good afternoon. A question for Jason. I'm curious if you could give sort of a little bit of background of how you came together with iSpace to launch your 2 lunar landers on the same Falcon 9, and if there are any unusual challenges or things you had to overcome basically to sync up your development schedule so you would be ready to launch at the same time. Thanks.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to phone a friend and ask Juliana to take on that question.
Sure, yeah. So in this particular case, both Firefly and iSpace came to SpaceX directly, and we paired the 2 payloads together. We're always at SpaceX trying to maximize the amount of payload that can go to space, and especially when we have 2 missions that can each go to the moon on the same launch, it's something that we obviously want to take advantage of. And so when we found a solution for Firefly and iSpace missions to fly together on the same Falcon 9, it was a no-brainer to put them together.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Yes, 2 quick questions. If you don't make it off by January 20, how long do you have to wait before the next go-around? And for Juliana, you mentioned pairing the 2 landers to maximize payloads. I'm assuming that also reduces the cost for each company to get their lander to the moon?
Yeah, I'll pass this first question to Ray.
Thanks, Jason. So your question was, what do we do if we slip outside of that 20th day in January? So we would actually move to the following month. So we would go into February, and that window would open approximately mid-February and be about the same duration in February.
And then to respond related to launch costs, obviously if you have two payloads flying on a mission versus one payload flying on their own mission, the cost is cheaper. And at SpaceX, we are really interested in and invested in lowering the cost of launch for everybody. So that's something we're really proud of.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Joey Roulette with Reuters.
Hey, thanks. I was going to ask the same question about launch costs, but I guess I'll just be more specific for Juliana or for Jason. I'm just wondering if you could kind of ballpark how much this launch cost, or Juliana, if you would want to say like a combined figure on what this launch cost was for both providers, both customers together. Just some insight on that and details would be cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I can take this one.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
over to you.
Obviously, okay, great. We're not going to share any of the specific launch cost numbers, but one of the things I think that's really interesting and innovative about the CLPS program in general is one of the things Nikki talked about at the beginning of her opening remarks, and how NASA is intending to pursue a commercial approach for landing scientific instruments, I should say, on the moon. And so what that means is these science teams are partnering with commercial industry to use more commercial approaches for acquiring and securing launch. And so when you're using more commercial approaches, you have the liberty of doing unique things like pairing Firefly and iSpace together on this mission. So I think that approach and the commercial approach is really unique and exciting for CLPS generally.
Thank you all so much. We don't have any other reporters in the questioning queue, so we'll go ahead and wrap up today's call. But before that, did want to toss it back to Nikki to see if you have any closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the discussion today and all the questions. And I think, I just want to sort of pull the thread on one of the questions about, how people feel pride in being involved in these missions. And, I hope people watch the launch and feel that, everybody is a part of what we do. We explore the solar system, we explore the universe, we explore it for the good of humanity. And, I hope everybody feels that they're part in some way of this big endeavor to return to the moon and set up this sustained presence with a commercial lunar economy. Obviously we're excited about everything that we do on the moon. We're excited about the moon sort of paving the way to Mars as we continue to explore our solar system. I'm really, really proud to be part of this mission. Really proud that NASA is supporting this creation of a lunar economy with all of our American companies at the forefront. So NASA science will continue to deliver every second of every day, and together we will continue to do wonderful things. And, go NASA CLPS, go Falcon 9, go Blue Ghost Mission 1.
Thank you so much, Nikki. And actually, before we totally wrap up the call, I did see we have one other reporter that just joined the queue. We have Kenneth Chang with the New York Times. Kenneth, your line is now open.
For Juliana, when I talked with iSpace, they said they were the secondary rideshare payload, and so therefore Blue Ghost would be the primary payload for this mission. And then I had a bigger picture question for Nikki about how important are these science experiments? In that there was the two missions last year, and because the landings weren't perfect, you didn't really get much science out of it. And then with the biggest, most ambitious CLPS mission with Viper, you canceled it and you were trying to disassemble it. So so how important is, if you do or don't get the science, is it for Artemis? Because by the time you get the results, it's going to be too late really to affect the spacesuits or the two landers on the construction. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. The science is extremely important. All NASA science is important. That's why we do it. I think that you mustn't overlook the Peregrine. Yes, the Peregrine lander did not get to the lunar surface, but all credit to Astrobotic. They were able to operate that lander with actually a compromised propulsion system, and they were able to operate that in space. They kept all of the instruments on. They downloaded all of the data for us. We actually got a considerable amount of science from the Peregrine mission. So I think of these as maybe different degrees of successes rather than failures. The fact that Astrobotic had never built a lander before, and they were able to do that and able to just really sort of squeeze every bit of science out of that mission. The same with Intuitive Machines. Yes, it tipped when it landed, but it still landed a soft landing on the moon, and we were able to recover the science from there. With Viper, cost overruns and actually some issues with being able to land it on schedule, but we have not disassembled the Viper rover. We are looking. We've had what am I trying to say? RFI. Couldn't think of the right letters there. Sorry, Ken. A request for information that went out to look for people who could actually maybe land Viper for us at low cost to the government. So we are still trying to reap the science from these missions. We have 10 NASA science payloads on Blue Ghost, and we wouldn't put the instruments on if it wasn't important. We do understand with CLPS, a lot of these are first-time vendors, first-time flying to the moon. We know it's high risk. We accept it's high risk, but man, it's high reward. And so it is worth taking the risk because the science that we will get back from these missions is just going to be amazing.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I was just going to talk to you, Juliana.
Go ahead. Correct. The Blue Ghost lander is the primary, and iSpace is a rideshare or secondary payload on the mission. And I did want to go back and provide the timeline question that I got asked before. I have some of those figures now if that person is still online. So we deploy the Firefly Blue Ghost payload at 1 hour and 5 minutes into the mission. We then deploy the payload canister at 1 hour, 11 minutes into the mission. We then perform a very brief 1-second burn at 1 hour and 26 minutes into the mission. And then we subsequently deploy the iSpace lander at 1 hour and 32 minutes into the mission. And we are going to make sure that that's appropriately updated on our socials and website.
Thank you so much. All right, those were all then the questions that were submitted. We will toss it just real quickly to Jason to also provide some quick closing remarks.
Yeah, for everybody listening, this has been a banner week and days for the entire space commercial private industry. You're seeing a lot of new launch vehicles, heavy launch vehicles, super heavy launch vehicles, and right there in between them is the Firefly Blue Ghost lunar lander. If you don't know much about Firefly, please tune in at 1:11 a.m. You'll hear more about our company. But what I've observed at the company is our Fireflies do hard things really, really well. Space is hard. Going to the moon is even harder, and so you'll get to watch them in action. And then whether you're avid space follower or you don't know anything about space, please tune in. There's a lot of great things going on just in this 1 week. So go Blue Ghost, go Firefly, go NASA.
Thank you, Jason, Nikki, Juliana, and thank you to all who submitted questions to discuss, NASA's CLPS initiative. As a reminder, Firefly's Blue Ghost Mission 1 is scheduled to launch aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket at 1:11 a.m. January 15th. Our live launch broadcast will start at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time and will air on NASA Plus. Thanks again, and that will conclude our call.